Introduction. A city of contrasts and dreams. Ravenwood pulsed with life, its skyline a blend of towering glass skyscrapers and vintage brick storefronts. It was a city where old and new collided, a place that promised reinvention to anyone bold enough to embrace its contradictions. At the heart of the city was the Artisan Café, a haven for artists and creators, its walls adorned with sketches, its tables occupied by dreamers. This was where Sophia Bennett, 29, spent most of her days, hunched over her laptop. A freelance graphic designer with a sharp eye for detail and a reputation for perfection, Sophia was a woman on a mission. After a public fallout with her ex and former business partner, she was clawing her way back, determined to prove that she could succeed without anyone's help. Her striking blue eyes, framed by oversized glasses, gave her an air of focus and control, but beneath her carefully composed exterior lay a vulnerability she didn't dare expose. Across town, Ethan Walker, 31, had just returned to Ravenwood after years of chasing stories around the globe. A documentary filmmaker known for uncovering human truths, Ethan carried the weight of both professional scandal and personal loss. His last project had been mired in controversy, and his reputation had taken a hit. Ravenwood, with its familiar streets and memories, offered him a chance to start over. But Ethan wasn't just back for work. He was searching for redemption, for a story that could help him find his footing again. The spark, a collision of opposites. Sophia's day at the Artisan Café was like any other: tight deadlines, caffeine-fueled focus, and a near-constant hum of self-doubt she hid from the world. As she adjusted the alignment on a client's logo for the 10th time, a sudden click of a camera broke her concentration. She looked up to see Ethan, his camera trained on her. "Seriously?" she snapped, glaring at him. Ethan lowered the camera, amused. "Couldn't help it. You looked so intense." "I was working," Sophia retorted, clearly annoyed. "And now you're not," Ethan quipped, slinging the camera over his shoulder. "Relax. It's just a photo." Sophia's irritation bubbled over. "Some of us don't have time to wander around taking pictures of strangers." Ethan raised an eyebrow, unfazed by her tone. "And some of us are trying to capture the essence of modern creativity." Their exchange drew the attention of a few nearby patrons, and while Sophia returned to her laptop, she couldn't shake the feeling of his gaze. Ethan, intrigued by her fiery reaction, lingered a little longer than necessary, already piecing together the story behind her guarded expression. The call to action, a collaboration neither wanted. The following day, Sophia attended an impromptu meeting organized by the city's cultural board. Ravenwood was launching a creative initiative to spotlight local artists, and Sophia had been invited to contribute her graphic design skills. To her dismay, Ethan was there too. "We want this project to showcase Ravenwood's soul," said the organizer, gesturing between them. Sophia's designs paired with Ethan's storytelling could be the perfect way to do that. Sophia frowned. The last thing she needed was to work with someone like Ethan, someone who seemed to breeze through life on charm alone. Ethan, on the other hand, saw potential. "Looks like we're stuck together," he said, flashing a grin. "Fantastic," Sophia muttered, already regretting agreeing to the project. Their task was to create a multimedia installation that captured the spirit of Ravenwood. For Sophia, it was a chance to rebuild her reputation. For Ethan, it was an opportunity to reclaim his. But their clashing personalities made collaboration a challenge from the start. Sophia was meticulous, creating detailed plans and color-coded timelines. Ethan was spontaneous, driven by instinct and emotion. Their first brainstorming session ended in frustration. "We need a clear direction," Sophia insisted, pointing to her carefully constructed mood board. "And we'll find it," Ethan replied, leaning back in his chair. "But creativity isn't about sticking to a plan." Sophia's jaw tightened. "Maybe if you actually followed through on something, you'd understand." Ethan's smirk faltered for the first time, but he quickly recovered. "And maybe if you let go of control, you'd see the bigger picture." Their tension was palpable, but beneath it lay an unspoken curiosity. Each recognized something in the other that they couldn't yet name. Tension builds with the first assignment. Their first official assignment took them to an abandoned library slated for renovation. Ethan brought his camera, snapping photos of the crumbling shelves and faded murals. Sophia trailed behind, sketching concepts for the installation. "Do you always work like this?" she asked, watching as Ethan climbed a precarious ladder to get a better shot. "Like what?" Recklessly, Ethan grinned. "It's called capturing the moment. And what happens if the moment gets you killed?" "I get the shot first," he said with a wink, climbing down. Sophia rolled her eyes, but she couldn't suppress a smile. There was something maddeningly endearing about his confidence. As they worked, they stumbled upon a hidden alcove filled with old letters and photographs. Ethan sifted through them, his expression softening as he uncovered stories of the people who had once used the library. "This," he said, holding up a faded photograph of a young couple, "is what makes this project worth it. The lives behind the walls." Sophia studied the photo, her defenses momentarily lowered. "You see things differently," she admitted. "And you make them real," Ethan replied, foreshadowing of conflict. Despite their occasional moments of connection, their differences loomed large. Ethan's tendency to dive into projects without a plan clashed with Sophia's need for structure, leading to frequent arguments. During one particularly heated exchange, Sophia accused Ethan of being careless. "Not everything can be fixed with a good story," she snapped. "And not everything has to be perfect to matter," Ethan shot back. The tension between them was undeniable, but so was the spark. Both were stubborn, passionate, and haunted by their own insecurities, making their partnership as volatile as it was compelling. Ending with intrigue. As they left the library that evening, the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the city in golden light. Sophia glanced at Ethan, wondering why his presence unsettled her so much. "Why do you care so much about this project?" she asked. Ethan paused, his easygoing demeanor giving way to something more serious. "Because it's not just about the project. It's about what it represents for both of us." Sophia didn't respond, but his words lingered as they walked back into the heart of the city. In the quiet moments between their clashes, something was beginning to take root. Something neither of them was ready to admit. Uneasy beginnings. Their first few weeks of collaboration were anything but smooth. Ethan and Sophia worked out of the artisan cafe, their table perpetually strewn with blueprints, photographs, and a mismatched assortment of half-empty coffee cups. "Do you ever sit still?" Sophia muttered as Ethan paced back and forth, flipping through his notebook. "I think better on my feet," Ethan replied, scribbling an idea mid-stride. Sophia sighed, tightening her grip on her stylus. "Maybe think quieter." Ethan grinned but didn't respond. He knew how much his energy annoyed her, and he found a strange satisfaction in pushing her buttons. Yet, despite their clashes, they kept finding small, unexpected moments of alignment. First breakthrough, the alley wall. One morning, Ethan insisted on taking Sophia to an abandoned alley in Ravenwood's old industrial district. "This," he said, gesturing to a weathered brick wall covered in faded graffiti, "is the heart of the city." Sophia arched an eyebrow. "It looks like vandalism." "It's history," Ethan corrected. He pointed to a section of the wall where layers of paint told a story. A political slogan from the 70s, an amateur mural from the 90s, and a newer piece scrawled over it all. Each layer is a voice. Together, they're a conversation. Sophia frowned, unsure. "How does that fit with our project?" "By not fitting," Ethan said. "This wall represents everything Ravenwood is: messy, chaotic, alive." Sophia spent the next few hours photographing the wall and sketching potential designs, her skepticism slowly giving way to inspiration. For the first time, she saw the value in Ethan's approach. Shared vulnerabilities. As they spent more time together, their conversations became less about work and more about each other. One rainy afternoon, trapped in the cafe by a sudden downpour, Ethan asked, "What got you into design?" Sophia hesitated, unsure if she wanted to share something so personal. But Ethan's gaze was steady, unpressuring. My mom, she said finally. She was an architect. I used to watch her sketch these incredible buildings, always dreaming about what they could become. I wanted to do that too. Bring ideas to life. Ethan smiled. She must be proud. She passed away when I was 16, Sophia said softly. But yeah, I think she would be. Ethan's expression shifted, his usual confidence replaced by something gentler. I know what that's like, losing someone who shaped who you are. Sophia looked at him, surprised. Who did you lose? My fiancé, Ethan admitted. Car accident 3 years ago. The air between them grew heavy, but neither looked away. For the first time, their shared pain became a bridge instead of a barrier. Tension from outside forces. Their partnership wasn't without complications. Sophia's ex, Alex, began spreading rumors about her abilities, claiming her best work had been his ideas. He's trying to ruin me? Sophia vented to Ethan after a particularly scathing blog post. Ethan leaned forward, his tone firm. You don't need to prove anything to him or anyone else. Your work speaks for itself. But Ethan wasn't immune to outside pressures either. An article surfaced online accusing him of misrepresenting facts in one of his documentaries. Though he denied the claims, the whispers followed him, casting doubt on his reputation. I can't escape it, Ethan said one evening, his frustration boiling over. Sophia reached out, placing a hand on his. Then let's show them who you really are. Moments of discovery. Their late-night brainstorming sessions often led to unplanned adventures. One night, while searching for inspiration, Ethan suggested visiting the old Ravenwood train station. It's closed, Sophia pointed out as they arrived at the locked gates. Ethan grinned, producing a flashlight. Since when has that stopped us? Inside, the station was a time capsule of the city's history. Peeling posters advertised long-forgotten events, and dusty benches bore the initials of travelers who had passed through decades ago. Sophia found herself sketching furiously, her mind alive with ideas. Ethan, meanwhile, filmed the space, capturing its eerie beauty. This place, Sophia said, her voice tinged with awe. It's like the city's heartbeat. Ethan nodded, his camera trained on her. And you're bringing it back to life, building trust. Slowly, their dynamic began to shift. Ethan stopped interrupting Sophia's carefully constructed plans, and Sophia learned to embrace Ethan's unpredictability. One evening, as they reviewed their progress, Ethan said, You know, I don't think I've ever worked this well with anyone before. Sophia smirked. Are you saying I'm your favorite collaborator? Don't get cocky, Ethan teased, but his tone held a sincerity that made Sophia's cheeks flush.
Symbolic moments.
Their work began to reflect their growing bond. The mosaic bench. Inspired by the alley wall, they created a mosaic bench for the city square. Each tile represented a different aspect of Ravenwood's history, mirroring their own layered partnership. The lantern walk. During a citywide event, they installed lanterns along the riverbank, each one inscribed with a word or phrase from their project. As the lanterns floated away, they both felt a sense of release, letting go of their pasts to make room for something new. Hints of something more despite their professional success. Unspoken feelings began to surface. During a late-night walk after one of their installations, Ethan said, You ever feel like we're building more than just a project? Sophia's heart skipped a beat. What do you mean? I don't know, Ethan admitted, his voice quieter. But whatever it is, it feels important. Sophia didn't respond, but the weight of his words lingered as they walked in silence. The intrigue unfolds. As the project neared completion, they discovered an old journal hidden in the library they had restored. The entries belonged to a young woman who had lived in Ravenwood decades ago, her words chronicling a love story that had never been fulfilled. She talks about building something lasting, Sophia said, flipping through the pages. Something that people will remember long after she's gone. Ethan studied the journal, his expression thoughtful.
Sounds familiar.
Their project suddenly took on new meaning, not just for the city, but for themselves. The catalyst, a public criticism. One morning, As Sophia was fine-tuning her mosaic bench in the town square, Ethan arrived with a grim expression. He handed her his phone, showing a scathing article written by a local journalist. The piece criticized the project, claiming it lacked authenticity and calling it a vanity endeavor by a washed-up filmmaker and a designer with a chip on her shoulder. Sophia's heart sank as she read the article. "They think we're frauds," she whispered, her voice shaky. Ethan clenched his fists. "It's one opinion. The work speaks for itself." "Does it?" Sophia snapped, her frustration boiling over. "Because it feels like everything I've done is being overshadowed by your reputation or your lack of one." Ethan's face hardened. "Is that what you think? That I'm dragging you down?" Sophia hesitated, then shook her head. "I don't know what to think anymore." The tension between them crackled like static, unresolved and suffocating. The argument, truths unearthed. That evening, as they worked on their final installation by the riverbank, the argument reignited. Ethan had suggested altering the design last minute, and Sophia's patience snapped. "You can't just change things on a whim," she yelled, her voice echoing over the water. "It's called adapting," Ethan shot back. "Something you clearly don't know how to do." Sophia glared at him. "Do you ever take anything seriously? Or is everything just a game to you?" Ethan threw down his notebook. "You think I don't care? About this? About us?" Sophia froze. "Us? Yes, us," Ethan shouted, his voice raw. "Do you think I spend all these late nights here because I love lanterns and benches? I'm here because of you." The confession hung in the air, heavy and undeniable. Sophia's breath caught, but her fear of vulnerability took over. "Don't make this about feelings, Ethan. This is about the project." "No, it's not," Ethan said, stepping closer. "It's about why you're so scared to let anyone in. Why you can't trust that someone might actually want to stand beside you." Tears welled in Sophia's eyes, but she refused to let them fall. "And what about you? You run from everything. From your career, your mistakes. Probably even your feelings for me." Ethan's face softened, the fire in his eyes dimming. "Maybe I do run, but at least I'm willing to admit it. Can you say the same?" Sophia turned away, her silence speaking volumes. The fallout, distance grows. The next day, Sophia threw herself into finishing the installations alone. Ethan didn't show up, and his absence felt like a gaping hole in her carefully structured plans. She told herself it was better this way, that she worked better on her own. But the ache in her chest told a different story. Meanwhile, Ethan wandered the city, replaying their argument in his mind. He knew he'd crossed a line, but he also couldn't shake the feeling that he'd told her the truth she needed to hear. Still, he wondered if he'd pushed too hard, too soon. As the days ticked down to the unveiling, the distance between them grew, and their once electric partnership began to unravel. The twist, a hidden letter. On the eve of the unveiling, Sophia returned to the abandoned library where much of their inspiration had originated. She hoped the quiet would help her clear her mind. As she wandered the aisles, her eyes fell on the journal they discovered weeks earlier, the one written by a young woman chronicling her love story. She flipped through its pages, searching for clarity. Toward the back, she found an entry they had missed before, hidden among loose papers. It read, "I was too scared to tell him how I felt. I thought staying silent would protect me from rejection, but all it did was build a wall between us. By the time I realized my mistake, it was too late. If I could do it over, I'd tell him that love is worth the risk, even if it terrifies you." Sophia's chest tightened as she read the words. They felt like they were written for her. She thought of Ethan, his fiery passion, his relentless belief in their work, and the vulnerability he'd shown in admitting his feelings. For the first time, she saw her own fear clearly. It wasn't just about the project. It was about her fear of failure, of losing herself, of being hurt again. She knew what she had to do. The grand unveiling. A moment of truth. The night of the unveiling arrived, and the city square was alive with light and music. Hundreds of people gathered to witness the culmination of Sophia and Ethan's work. The mosaic bench sparkled under the lanterns, The installations along the river glowed with warmth, and the alley wall stood as a testament to Ravenwood's history. Sophia stood on the stage, ready to deliver her speech, but her eyes scanned the crowd for Ethan. He was nowhere to be seen. Taking a deep breath, she began. This project isn't just about art. It's about connection, about the stories that shape us and the people who help us tell them. Her voice faltered, but she pushed on. I didn't do this alone. Someone reminded me that creativity isn't about control. It's about trust. And tonight, I want to thank him. The crowd erupted in applause, but Sophia's heart ached. She stepped down from the stage, unsure if she'd ever get the chance to tell Ethan how she really felt. The reunion, an unfinished story. As the evening wound down, Sophia wandered toward the riverbank, drawn to the quiet glow of the lanterns. She stood alone, watching their light dance on the water. Beautiful, isn't it? A familiar voice said behind her. Sophia turned to see Ethan, his expression unreadable. You came, she said, her voice trembling. I couldn't stay away, he admitted. For a moment, they stood in silence, the weight of everything unsaid pressing down on them. Finally, Sophia spoke. I read the letter, she said. The one from the journal. It said that love is worth the risk. Ethan's eyes softened. And what do you think? Sophia stepped closer, her walls finally crumbling. I think I've been too scared to admit what's right in front of me. But I don't want to be scared anymore. Ethan smiled, his hand brushing against hers. Neither do I. As the final lantern floated away, they stood together, their fingers entwined. A promise of a new beginning. The revelation. A shared legacy. The next day, Sophia and Ethan returned to the library to leave a note of their own in the journal. They wrote about their journey, their struggles, and the bond they'd forged through their work. As they placed the journal back on the shelf, Sophia said, Maybe someone will find this someday and be inspired. Ethan nodded, his arm around her shoulders. And maybe they'll see that love, like art, is a process worth fighting for. The morning after, lingering uncertainty. The morning after the grand unveiling of Ravenwood Reflections, the city was alive with chatter about the event. Local news outlets praised the installations, and social media buzzed with photos of families posing near the mosaic bench and lanterns glowing by the riverbank. But for Sophia and Ethan, the euphoria of success was tempered by the quiet tension between them. Sophia sat in her studio, her hands hovering over her sketchpad, but unable to draw. She kept replaying her last conversation with Ethan by the riverbank. It had been tender, raw, and full of promise. Yet a part of her still feared that their connection might crumble under the weight of their insecurities and past wounds. Ethan, meanwhile, walked through Ravenwood's alleys, revisiting the installations they had created together. For the first time, he saw them not just as pieces of art, but as symbols of their journey, a testament to the growth and trust they had painstakingly built. But something still felt unfinished, as if one vital piece of their story was missing. A letter uncovered. Later that afternoon, Sophia received a call from Clara, her best friend. You'll never believe this, Clara said, her voice buzzing with excitement. The city archives found more of that woman's journal, the one you and Ethan used as inspiration. They're adding it to the exhibit. You should come see it. Sophia hesitated, unsure if she was ready to face the memories tied to that journal. But curiosity, and a longing for closure, pushed her to go. When she arrived at the library, Ethan was already there, standing by the display case that now housed the journal. His face lit up when he saw her, though he quickly masked it with a casual smile. I guess you couldn't resist either, he said. Sophia shrugged, trying to seem nonchalant. Clara insisted. Ethan gestured to the newly discovered pages. You need to read this. The final entries of the journal revealed an unexpected twist. The young woman, Grace, had planned to confess her feelings to the man she loved through a secret message hidden in a mural she painted inside the library. But the mural had been lost over time, covered by renovations. Sophia felt a jolt of recognition. Ethan, that mural, it might still be here. What if we could find it? unearthing the past. Together, Sophia and Ethan convinced the city's preservation team to let them examine the library walls. Over the next few days, they carefully peeled back layers of paint and plaster, working late into the night. As they scraped away the last layer, vibrant colors began to emerge. An intricate mural depicting a bridge covered in ivy, much like the one they had restored for their project. In the corner of the mural, hidden beneath years of neglect, they found the message Grace had left behind. For the dreamers who dare to risk their hearts, love, like art, is never finished. It evolves. Trust the journey, even when it scares you. Sophia's breath caught as she read the words. She turned to Ethan, her eyes brimming with emotion. It's like she was speaking to us. Ethan reached for her hand, his grip warm and steady. Because she was. She knew the fear of opening up, of trusting someone else. But she also knew it was worth it. A grand gesture. Inspired by Grace's words, Ethan planned a surprise for Sophia. He enlisted the help of Clara and some local artists to recreate the ivy-covered bridge from the mural as a three-dimensional installation in the town square. The structure would serve as a permanent symbol of their project and the love story that had inspired it. On the day of the reveal, Ethan led Sophia to the square with a blindfold over her eyes. "You're going to love this," he said, his voice filled with nervous excitement. When he removed the blindfold, Sophia gasped. The bridge stood before her, illuminated by hundreds of tiny lanterns. Couples walked hand in hand across it. Children laughed as they raced along its path, and families paused to admire its beauty. "It's incredible," Sophia whispered, her voice trembling. "You did this." Ethan nodded. "For you, for us, because I believe in what we're building, together." Sophia turned to him, tears streaming down her face. "I don't deserve this." "Yes, you do," Ethan said, cupping her face in his hands. "You deserve everything, and I want to be the one to give it to you." In that moment, surrounded by the glow of lanterns and the murmurs of the crowd, Sophia finally let go of her fears. She pulled Ethan into a kiss, their connection more certain than ever. The community's reaction. The unveiling of the bridge marked a turning point not just for Sophia and Ethan, but for Ravenwood as a whole. The installation became a beloved gathering place, inspiring new stories and connections among the city's residents. Local newspapers dubbed it the heart of Ravenwood, and people began leaving messages of hope and love on the bridge, much like Grace's hidden note in the mural. Sophia and Ethan's project had grown beyond anything they could have imagined, becoming a living, breathing symbol of resilience and creativity. Clara, ever the romantic, couldn't help but tease Sophia during a celebratory dinner. "You two should get married on that bridge. It's basically your love child." Sophia rolled her eyes, but the thought sent a warm flutter through her chest. For the first time, she could imagine a future where love and ambition coexisted. The moral of the story. As weeks turned into months, Sophia and Ethan continued to collaborate, but their partnership evolved beyond work. They supported each other's individual pursuits. Sophia took on a new solo project designing an art center, while Ethan began filming a documentary about Ravenwood's history. Yet, no matter how busy their lives became, they always made time for each other. One evening, as they sat together on the ivy-covered bridge, Ethan asked, "Do you ever think about how far we've come?" "All the time," Sophia replied, leaning her head against his shoulder. "It's like every step we took, good and bad, led us here." Ethan smiled, wrapping an arm around her. Grace was right. Love isn't about perfection. It's about growth. Sophia nodded, her heart full. And trust. Lots of trust. As the city lights shimmered around them, they knew their story wasn't just about love. It was about courage, resilience, and the power of believing in something bigger than themselves. Intrigue revealed. A puzzle completed. In the final moments of the story, the camera lingers on the bridge, now adorned with countless messages from the community. Each note tells a story of hope, love, or renewal, weaving a tapestry of human connection. As the scene fades, Grace's words from the journal echo in the background. "Trust the journey, even when it scares you. For love, like art, is never finished. It evolves. The screen fades to black, leaving viewers with a profound sense of hope and the reminder that true connection requires both vulnerability and courage.